my topic today isn't, it's not strictly a legal topic. And as Tom said, I spend most of my time dealing with estate planning, dealing with business succession. But in the time I've been at Bakke Norman, it seems like the nursing home question comes up with more and more frequency. And I think that has something to do with the directions that the laws have gone, as well as the cost of that care, which continues to be on a steep upward climb. So what I wanted to talk about today, I mentioned that there's been some changes in these laws, and so I just want people to be aware of sort of what the picture has been historically about medical assistance, which is the government program that will help individuals pay for their nursing home care. But then also, kind of given that picture, what are other options as a way to plan for this risk? We all know we're going to die. We all know we're going to pay taxes. We don't know whether we're going to spend time in the nursing home. And we all have the stories of the long-term stays. We don't hear the stories on a frequent basis of the people who die peacefully at home and never spend a day in the nursing home. And certainly even within my own family, I had a grandmother with Alzheimer's who spent a long time in the nursing home. I have a 90-year-old grandmother who's still living at home on her own. So this is an area of where you just need to be aware of what are the risks, and then perhaps what are you willing to spend to plan for that risk. So I don't sell long-term care insurance. Richardson Tax and Accounting doesn't, Bakke Norman doesn't. But I just thought that it was worth sharing today those options of kind of how does this whole process work, and how are we going to answer this question of how will I pay for nursing home care if I need it. So what I'm going to cover is that medical assistance process, sort of what it's been historically, and then let you know the update on some of the recent things that have changed that sort of impact that process. But then also talk a little bit about what are our other options. As you are all well aware of, when you get involved with government programs on the farm, when the government gets involved, then you have to play by their rules. And so it may well be worth saying, you know what, if I never ask the government to help me with the care, I don't have to worry about their rules. So just talking about some of those private pay options that are available through the insurance market. So how does this work? What happens if I go to the nursing home? Bottom line is the bill's going to need to be paid. And so you can do that by writing the check, like you pay your mortgage, like you pay your other bills every month. As Tom mentioned, that's a big check to write every month at pushing $7,000 a month for average cost of care, certainly some options that are much higher than that. You can insure against this risk and have long-term care insurance in place that would kick in and help pay for that bill. I also added on this list veterans benefits, and yesterday was Veterans Day, so this is all a little bit on our minds, but it was just recently that I discovered a benefit that I wasn't aware of for veterans of wartime eras, that there is actually a specific benefit program that pitches in to help pay that nursing home care, not only for the veteran, but for their spouse. I had a client recently who took advantage of that, and just kind of one of those little known items. So for those who have served, thank you for your service, and also don't hesitate to reach out to your local Veterans Administration and find out those programs and things that may be available to assist you in your plan. Then we can also ask the government to help pay for the bill by qualifying for medical assistance. So this is medical assistance in a nutshell. We could have spent the whole 2 hours this morning talking about medical assistance, but I'm just going to try to scratch the surface and make this kind of as simple as I can. If you go into the nursing home, they are going to take a snapshot of your assets and income as of the day you go in the nursing home. And if you're married, that's you and your spouse. They don't care if the farm is only in the husband's name and wife is the one who goes to the nursing home. They don't care if you have a prenup that says the farm is the one who inherited the farm and the other spouse doesn't have an ownership interest. They don't care about any of those boundaries. It's your collective assets. So it's a reason that some of my clients who are getting married, late in life, in their 70s and 80s, will actually choose not to get married because they're worried about, might I end up having to pay, and my kids then don't get inheritance because now I've had to pay for new spouse's nursing home care. When they take that snapshot, then they want to divvy that up into two piles, the available and the unavailable. Available is the stack where you're going to have to draw against to pay for the nursing home care. The unavailable is the pile of assets that will not count toward these limits that you need to be below in order for medical assistance to pay that bill. My example is all for a married couple. When you're single, all of this is a little different, but because of our lack of time here this morning, that's the example I'm working from. So what's in the unavailable pile? It's, so long as one spouse is at home, it's the house and all the contiguous acreage, so all the acreage that touches, up to a maximum value of $750,000. So if one spouse goes in the nursing home, the spouse who's at home is not going to get kicked out of the house. That's a frequent kind of misperception. Also in that unavailable pile are assets used in business and assets that generate income. There's some other things kind of on the side. You can have a vehicle, any prepaid funeral accounts. All of those are on the unavailable side of the pile. So for kind of your traditional farm like I grew up on, 160-acre farm, 40-cow dairy, the retirement is really the farm. We don't have a whole lot of money in the bank. Most things are going to be in that unavailable pile right from the start because you're going to have the home, the cattle and machinery are going to be in the unavailable pile. So things are going to be weighted heavily on that side. Now we determine what's on the other side, what's on the available pile. Just using round numbers, if that amount is about $200,000 or less, the spouse who's at home gets half with a minimum of $50,000 and kind of that max of about $100,000. So if we have $75,000 worth of assets in the available pile, $50,000 is for the spouse who's at home. The other $25,000 is what's going to need to be used to pay for the nursing home spouse's care or other approved expenses. And then on the flip side, with that max being $100,000, that basically you can protect for the spouse who's at home. And then that remaining amount will be used for paying the nursing home bill for as long as necessary. There's other kind of strategic things we can do at the time to use up that pile more quickly so as to qualify for medical assistance to start paying that bill. So even if you haven't done any kind of nursing home planning and one spouse goes into the nursing home, that doesn't mean that there's still not some things we can do to try to protect some assets. There are some wait and see strategies, so just something to keep in mind. Once you then have used up the portion that's for the spouse who's in the nursing home, now medical assistance will start paying. You're qualified. And you won't need to use any of the personal assets anymore to pay the bill. Medical assistance will pay that. Asterisk. When they make that snapshot and they want to know what your assets and income are as of the date of the nursing home admission, that application is going to care about not only what you own that day, but also any divestments made in the last 5 years. I call divestment the dirty word. Divestment just means any transfer that happened for less than fair market value. So 3 years ago, you gave away $100,000 worth of land to one of your children. That's a divestment. Or you sold land to your farming child, maybe market rate is $5,000 an acre, and you sold it for $3,000 an acre. That's a divestment, that difference between what the fair market value was and what the actual transfer price was. So you have to disclose any divestments that you made within the look-back period. And that period right now is 5 years. So a lot of people have heard that number and will say, well, we've got to make it 5 years, right? We have to make it 5 years. As we stand here today, that number is 5 years. They can change that at any time. And unfortunately, the rule that applies is the rule as of the date you go in the nursing home, not the date you made the gift. So if you make it right now, and the rule is 5 years, and you make it through that 5 years, and maybe even you make it 6 years, but in that 6th year, and before one of you goes into the nursing home, the rule changes, and it becomes a 7-year look back. Now you have to make the 7-year, not the 5-year. So this is going to be a theme as we're kind of talking about this law. They keep changing the rules. And I say that dealing with these issues is like standing on quicksand, because I can tell you what works today, and I can give you the perfect plan that works today, but those rules can change at any time. And it certainly doesn't give us a whole lot of certainty. I mean, it's really what we're looking for in our business plans and our farm succession plans is, hey, everybody knows what the rules of the game are. We know how this is going to work. We've planned for all the risks. Well, this is a risk that's really uncertain because they keep changing the rules. If you have made a divestment within that 5-year look-back period, there's going to be a penalty that they'll calculate. And that's based on what the average cost of care is and then the amount of your divestment. So in that example I just gave where it's the $2,000 gap between the fair market price and the price you sold for, it's not the full $5,000 that you're going to be measuring, it's that gap. So when people come in and say, yeah, go ahead.
Is that value determined at the time of the sale or at the time of entering the nursing home?
Time of the sale, and that's why I really do encourage people to get independent valuations when we're making gifts for a variety of reasons, but then you have good paperwork to prove this is what it was worth at the time. And particularly we've kind of had this increase in farm values. Measuring it on today's numbers for a gift that happened 4 years ago, there might be a substantial difference in that. And so it's always helpful when you're dealing with these programs to actually have a piece of paper in your hand that proves, hey, this is what it was at the time. So it can often be worth a couple $100 to have that in hand if it comes up down the road.
Is also that 5-year look back, is that a determining factor like the estate $1 million was in the farm bill? Is it part of the farm bill or a tax law?
It's totally, the medical assistance laws are not part of the farm bill. It's not a farm law or related at all. This applies equally whether you're a farm or whether you're a townie like me. And it's primarily federally driven, but as I'll move forward here, there's been some Wisconsin changes that kind of have divorced us from the federal law, and there's a lot of controversy about whether that was validly done or not. So I'm headed there. So if you've made a divestment, that isn't the end of the day in terms of your medical assistance eligibility, but it can put someone in a position where they've made a substantial gift. They haven't made it through the look-back period, so it's still counting. When they've otherwise spent down their available pile to where medical assistance should be paying, then that penalty period kicks in and they still won't pay. So it can put parents in a situation where the money and the assets are gone, but medical assistance isn't yet going to pay. And so how is that going to work? How is the bill getting paid? And so it's always something that I talk to people about when they come in and they want to make substantial gifts is, are you prepared for that risk? Is that child to whom you've made that gift, is it still going to be in the bank? Is it going to be there? It's one way of avoiding this dirty word divestment is you undo the transaction. You cure the divestment. well, is the money or asset still going to be there? And so that puts a lot of risk, you know, we were worried about the parent's risk. Now, what's happened with the child? Have they spent it? Have they gone through a divorce? How comfortable are you in trusting kind of your future financial security on your children? So now getting into a little bit of sort of what's changed recently. It used to be, once we got through that whole separate the piles and use up the portion that we needed to, and we got the spouse who's in the nursing home qualified for medical assistance, and so now medical assistance is paying the nursing home bill. Those assets that were sitting over there in the unavailable pile, we could move those, we could transfer those. So now we went from a theoretical risk that, hey, you know, one of the parents may go in the nursing home and may be in there for a long period of time. So this is an expensive problem. To a real risk, parent is in the nursing home. And that can definitely impact your calculus in terms of your risk tolerance. That, okay, I wasn't ready to give up control before, but we've got a real problem now. And so let's go ahead and make the transfer. And so we could go ahead and do the transfer, do the sale, get those assets in the other pile out of that marital pot. Under the new rule, we can't do that. We can't move those assets around, or that's going to be considered a divestment. So we have to wait that 5 years all over again. So it's really handcuffing some of our farm succession planning or the idea of doing more wait and see type planning, because now not only would we make, if we make strategic decisions to transfer some assets now for less than fair market value, making it through the 5 year before the first spouse goes in the nursing home, but once they do, any of those assets that should or would have been protected now also have to make it through another 5 years. But wait, there's more. Not only do we have to worry about all these qualifications and getting under these limits and doing our spend down and making it through look back periods, but they've also gotten much more aggressive of after the fact. So let's say we went through the process, we got qualified, one spouse was in the nursing home, medical assistance paid for nursing home care. Hey, they're going to come back looking to recover from the estate, looking to recover from the spouse who's still at home, or later when a transfer occurs from the other parent now to children, they're going to say, you know, we paid, the average cost of care is $6,800 a month, the medical assistance pay is about half that, so, you know, $3,500 a month times that 2.5 years, you owe us that back, pay us that back. And so that adds another complicating factor. You know, even if we make it through steps 1 through 10, we may end up with a problem even after both the parents have passed away. Those rules, again, this was a Wisconsin thing that was passed. The elder law attorneys have been saying that the state can't do this. We can't divorce our rules from the federal rules. You know, this isn't legal to do this. Those battles haven't been fought yet. Through the rulemaking process, what they've now decided is the rules are going to stay on the books, but we're going to agree not to enforce them. So, again, that makes it really easy for me to help my clients have certainty, because they say that today that they're not going to enforce them. They could change their mind a week from now, a year from now. And so it's really made, you know, this area incredibly difficult to have any sort of certainty. So this slide talks a little bit more about that estate recovery process. You know, it used to be that so long as we avoided the probate process at the end of the day, we could avoid that estate recovery. They're getting much more aggressive about that, and not only are they going after non-probate assets, so things like life insurance proceeds, like Jim was talking about, but they're also putting personal responsibility on that lucky child you've picked to be personal representative of your estate or trustee of your revocable trust, successor trustee. They can be personally on the hook if they don't get these monies back and get them paid back to medical assistance. So now what? Now that that's all clear as mud, right? So I am highly encouraging people to at least consider, explore other ways of paying for long-term care other than relying on medical assistance to help pay that bill. And so, I mean, you can do that from the assets that you have. You can explore some insurance options for that. And the other thing to think about is also the income side of things. You know, between Social Security and pension and other income you expect to have in your retirement, is there enough, or how big is the gap between what your income is per month versus what that average cost of nursing home care is? And so rather than thinking about even the insurance option of covering that whole bill, covering that whole $6,800 a month, you know, maybe narrowing that down to what's that gap? What's that gap that we're not going to be able to cover? And so again, if we never ask the government to pay for the nursing home care, we don't have to worry about the rules. So it's just something to explore. So what are the options? And I think the thing people are most familiar with is the traditional insurance that works more like an auto insurance policy. When you hit a cow, you collect on your insurance and you get something back from the premiums you've paid all year. If you don't have any accidents, well, you've paid that premium and you haven't gotten anything back. So it's kind of a use it or lose it sort of idea. There are different kinds of what I would generically call long-term care insurance, but really that's broken down and kind of starting from the bottom. There's insurance that could cover home health expenses. And actually, for most people, hey, if there's a shot of being able to stay at home, you know, that's where you'd prefer to be as opposed to being in the nursing home. And so there's insurance that covers just that. There's insurance that just covers nursing home if you are institutionalized in a nursing home. But then the more common thing right now is long-term care insurance, which includes both of those components. So it could both help pay for home health expenses, or if you do need to go to the nursing home, it could pay for those expenses as well. Typically the pay rate is about half. So if you have $3,000 of nursing home coverage, you'd have about $1,500 to use for home health expenses. There's also a new thing that they call partnership plans, and the whole idea of this is, let's encourage people to get some insurance. And if they do that, they've paid those premiums, they've done that, they've covered part of that, we're going to let them, even if it eventually then gets to the point where they do need medical assistance because the long-term care insurance doesn't pay long enough. You've got a 3-year policy and you're in there for 7 years. Or you otherwise run out of money, that will let you protect more assets because the insurance folks and the medical assistance folks have worked together and built that in. So just a feature of insurance and something to consider when you're comparing products. There's also some things that they're calling hybrid products that actually use kind of the same kind of insurance things that Jim was talking about, life insurance or annuities, but then adding a feature that allows you to utilize those dollars during your lifetime. And so when you're looking at these policies, just again, some kind of words to keep in mind. You want to consider what the elimination period is. Think of this as kind of the waiting period. The triggers on this insurance are the activities of daily living, or ADLs, and I've given those examples. And again, talking about those partnership plans. So just